Welcome back to Your Grey Matters, the podcast that caters to the curious minds of baby boomers seeking innovative solutions for the challenges they face. In today's episode, we dive into the fascinating world of artificial intelligence, exploring how this groundbreaking technology is transforming industries and offering unprecedented problem-solving capabilities. Join us as we uncover the potential of AI and its impact on the lives of baby boomers and beyond. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. That was a
That
great
is great. Sorry?
GREYT, by the way.
Great,
Great.
GREYT, that's right.
Yeah, we like that. Boy, wait,
So today is
we made this. Make today great.
perfect.
That's my technological skills.
Well, it's timely then, because today we're talking about AI, and that intro that I just read was written by ChatGPT, which we talk
Really?
a lot about today.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, I just told it, if our podcast had started prior to 2021, then it would have a record of it. We'd actually be able to say, write an introduction in the style of the Your Grey Matters podcast. But because obviously our podcast started after 2021, it doesn't have a record of us yet. So I had to tell it a little bit about the podcast and what it was aimed at, and what we talk about. So I thought it would be really cool if on a future episode at some point, we actually go through and I can show you what I did to get the introduction. And then as a bonus, I can also mention that I had it rewrite it in the style of Walter Cronkite. So we can talk about what that sounds like.
The man who only read the news didn't make up the
That's
news.
right. Yeah, so I found today's episode really, really fascinating. We use AI to edit the podcast. Basically, we take a number of different feeds and we put it all into one system, and the computer, using AI, syncs everything up based on certain audio and visual cues, and then I'm able to edit much more easily that way.
This is fantastic because I have to say, Jason, my gray hair and the people with whom I grew up in our generation, we saw some amazing technology when we got a color TV in the 60s.
That's right.
And we saw a car that didn't have a clutch. And that was amazing to us. So we've seen technological change. This is very exciting for me because we're going into week 8, 2 months of Your Grey Matters podcasts. I'm really thrilled. And everybody, if you've been listening to my podcast, and I hope that you have, you know that it stems from my belief that the human mind cannot be defeated. That's why we always talk about miraculous, technological, can't even say it, solutions. Here's what's cool. AI's come along, and the first thing that I wondered was, can the human mind be defeated? This is going to be a great episode. It'll be fun to learn about AI. Thank you, Jason. You always do a marvelous job.
Thank you. All right, everybody, enjoy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Neil Silver from Your Grey Matters. And as you know, at Your Grey Matters, we provide solutions, opportunities, things that exist, but maybe you're just not aware of them. And whether you have gray hair or no hair, or maybe you have colored hair, but come on, we know what's hiding under there. We think that you're going to enjoy today's show. Back in 1984, I watched a movie called Terminator. I was introduced to Arnold, and he did a great job of introducing in that movie what was a fantasy, what we think was complete fiction of what can happen. But oddly enough, there was a book that came out years ago, also called 1984. I have no idea why everybody picked that year to do something interesting about machinery, men, change in society. Very interesting. Today, I'm really privileged to bring on for you to hear, to listen to learn from a great person in my life, a fellow named Adam Oldfield. Adam is a tremendous success in his own right. He owns several companies. He hasn't, as you can see, earned any gray hair yet, so I'm going to be asking him about that. But he also is an actor. He recently played Chris Farley in the biopic that came out about the dark side of comedy. He understands entrepreneurialism, is that a word? But he also knows that when he's broadcasting on his 2 or 3 radio shows every week, that one of the topics that he likes to talk about is AI, artificial intelligence. I'm confused about AI. I want to learn about it. And I asked Adam to come on today to talk about AI. Adam, I've always believed that the human mind cannot be defeated. We will always find a way, but I'm wondering if AI is going to challenge us. So welcome to Your Gray Matters, Adam. Thanks for being on today.
Oh, thanks, Neil. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's a hot topic. It's a controversial topic. It is a revolutionary topic. And it's, I like to term it as, we're always afraid of what we don't know. And that's what I see the biggest concern is. Everyone's kind of like coming back and we're looking at AI as a, yes, but it could do this. Well, I've been around since the .com age, and everyone thought the internet was just a fad. And we were looking in the 90s at the time when it came out, and people were building online shopping. And the fear was retail is dead. The internet will take over retail. Kids will no longer need to read a book. They'll Google it, and they will no longer have the education they need to be able to survive in the future of tomorrow. The .com is about to isolate us from a social environment. We will no longer be able to communicate clearly with each other. Well, somehow we're still in the year 2023, 2024, and yeah, we're starting to have flying cars, but somehow we still live, we still function, we still have an economy, and it functions fine. It's different, but it's fine. If you watch a movie from the 90s, it's still comical to see the waiting in that anticipation for the facts to come in while everyone's waiting in that high intense moment of Mission Impossible while you're watching coming through. And now we look at it as a little more advanced. So, okay, we are in a new world. And honestly, Neil, this is just artificial intelligence, and it's been around a while. What's really kicked it to a degree of anticipation, of excitement and thrills and fear is in November, OpenAI launched their first chat GPT, which is a LLM, large language module. And what that means is it's a big, big computer. And this computer is learning. It's got fundamentally information that's been collected up until 2021. And now the new systems coming into the market are going to be integrated with now more details of where we can see AI going. So I talk about it a lot on the radio show with Bill Kelly. Where is the future of this technology? How is it impacting? Well, we've seen recently thousands and thousands of jobs have been liquidated at Google, at Amazon, and a lot of it would, during pre-COVID, there was a big hiring spree. We've seen it with Twitter. And a lot of the reasons these are being liquidated is that not because the people are inefficient, not because they're not able to function, not because the companies aren't in a profitable position, but it's because AI has been able to streamline a lot of things that we would take 6 people to do can now be done automated. So as a small business entrepreneur, I integrate the AI model quite effectively into my business. I'm paperless. I have been since 2015. I am more so paperless to this day. And, between one of the companies I operate, which is an HVAC business, it is using right now about a 20% AI systems that help me run my accounting, run my communications. And it's not that I don't have people working with me. It's just that I have less people that can now function the ability of providing better value for the people out there. So I teach at Mohawk, as you opened it up, and I teach sales and marketing. And I also, and there's a big difference here, Neil. I think what we need to address to people is AI is a tool. Okay. And I don't think we want to look at it as a solution. It is a tool. So we wouldn't look at a hammer and go, look, I got a hammer. The house is built. You still need to know how to put the nails in the in the wood. You need to, you know, and hammers can be used for so many different things. It can be used as a weapon. It can be used as a functioning action. It can help you build things. It can fix things. And so that's what I look at AI, is that it is a tool. It's a matter of how do we use it and how is it being functioned in today's world.
I think that's really interesting. For me, I don't know if anybody else thinks this way, Adam, but the hammer simply can't do anything if we don't have a hold of it and we're the ones swinging it. My concern is that AI may learn how to swing itself and we're not in control of it. And I'm just curious what you might see over the next 10 or 15 years. Am I just worried too much about this thing?
No, I don't think it's, I think what we're, again, I open it up with, we're worried about the things we don't know. And then we start, you know, and we've been brainwashed and fearful of what we've seen from Terminator to 2001 Space Odyssey. And there is a bit of a, if it's not controlled, is it going to then reap the world and create problems? I mean, I've heard everything from AI could create nuclear war to world devastation, and a lot of it is because of political misinformation. It could be spreading propaganda in a negative context. And I think that's fair. I mean, and here's the thing: AI is learning, right? And it's learning with the ability to improve. So, you know, and it's taking trillions of entries, concepts that are being developed. And what I saw with AI is, you know, in the learning of those that have launched it, is that, you know, it had a mathematical equation that it wasn't able to come up with a comprehensive answer to the question. And what happened was, not by any means of anyone fixing or otherwise, but over time, it fixed itself and it corrected itself and was able to know that the correct answer was, you know, X, Y, Z. So I think, you know, we're maybe jumping a little ahead of, you know, there's lots of concerns. I mean, we could look at it as cars are the most explosive mobile devices on the planet, the gasoline models. You know, if technically we wanted to say it, all it took was one match and every car could explode and blow up the world. I mean, that's a little extreme, but, you know, we're almost, you know, and I could be wrong. I mean, I certainly hope I am. I use it in a practical sense. What I also know is, it has a lot of dangers to it. Same way the internet has a lot of dangers. What the internet has done and what the web world has created is a new cybercrime. It has locked down municipalities. It has, you know, crushed enterprises. And it has done so with malware and with cyber criminals. And where AI is dangerous is that it can code very easily, program a simple malware system. And that malware, under the hospice of creating negativity, is going to could be, you know, dangerous if it rolled out or if it was able to get into other systems. So, and then it could learn. I mean, there's two areas I saw AI as, I'm not going to use the word dangerous, but concerning. Number one, it taught itself its own language. And that's something that I know the developers were quite concerned about, because now it was, and what happens is, and how it did it was, there's only 25,000 lines it was able to comprehend. So if you ever used Chat GPT, it looks like a chat space, like where you message and text people. You have 25,000 lines of code or options to speak. And then after that, you got to create a new answer. Well, what happens is, say you wanted to copy the book, you know, The Hobbit, and you know, that's a little more than 25,000 lines. You'd have to copy and say, summarize the book, and you put it in, and then you needed to create another line and then put another 25,000. What the language did was that it actually created its own language and summarized the 25,000 lines into one line. Now, coders weren't able to know what that was, but they knew it was teaching itself how to simplify the challenge. And, and that could be concerning of how it's learning from itself, how it's improving. Now, we can't control that because it taught itself its own language. You know, sometimes siblings end up using their own, you know, ways of talking to each other. No one else knows what they're saying, but they came up with their own language. That's what AI is doing. It's teaching itself those principles on how to learn from itself.
So let me ask you a question, Adam, if I could. And thank you for that, because, oh my God, it's mind-blowing to me. It just is.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm holding up a thing that people aren't aware of nowadays. It's called paper. You can write stuff on it, and they have this thing called a pen, and that's part of our original communication system. What I'm trying to say is, when Adam sent me some papers, some emails, actually, not paper, his bio, questions for today, preparation for today's podcast. The interesting thing is that it had a note on it, or Adam sent to me, that 80% of his communication with me was generated by AI. And I got thinking, Adam, you know what? This is a tool. We can either be afraid of it or we can embrace it and learn it, as our forefathers did with cars and boats that are heavier than water and airplanes that should not be flying through the air. Or if you look at the bee and look at its body structure, it shouldn't be able to fly. But the truth is, it doesn't know that, so it flies. And the interesting thing to me is, at my age, and I can only speak for me, I really want to take advantage of this pragmatically. How do you learn? Where do you go? Like, what do I do? I tried one last thing. It's funny. I tried signing in to Chat GPT or whatever I was sent to, but I couldn't get through because it refused to recognize my cell phone number as a cell phone number, and there was nobody to talk to. So now I can't use this supposedly brilliant AI because I can't get in.
Yeah, it's there's going to be programs and courses. In fact, it more or less, you can use it to teach if you can get in, Neil. That's a good point. I mean, if you're able to get in, then you can ask it all sorts of questions. But you know what? I mean, here's how I used it. I used it to teach me how to use it. And what I did was, when I first saw this come out and it was launched, available in January, I didn't understand it at first as well. I knew what it was, but I didn't understand how it worked. How does this function? How does it play out? And what I did was I ended up asking it. A lot of it is prompts. You got to make sure you ask the right prompt, but it's almost like you got to ask the right questions to get the right answers, right? So it's just as good as asking anything in general. Is only going, if you only ask yes and no answers, you're not going to get descriptive answers. So the first thing to know about ChatGPT is you got to structure it in a way that you're trying to come up with a way to better get a result. So I'll give you an example. In one of my jobs, I wanted to calculate, and it's always been a struggle. I mathematically could do it in my head, but I have to get not a pen, but I use my tablet, a paper, and I have to scribble down, if I want to adjust a discount for a customer, and I'm trying to adjust it based on a percentage, there's a very simple mathematical way to do that, but it takes a few minutes. And how I've integrated was, and I started with ChatGPT. So I asked the question, I want to take a certain amount of subtotal with the gross minus the deduction of the discount. I want to know what the sub amount is prior to tax. And it was giving me wacky answers. And I'm thinking, this thing's supposed to be the most intelligent thing in the world, yet it's giving me the most horrible mathematical solutions in the world. Like, this isn't smart. I kind of feel like I'm talking to anyone making up answers. It's kind of like, talking to someone who thinks they know what they're talking about. And at the end, you're like, you don't know anything. You're just making this up. And so they call it hallucinations. It's AI hallucinating. And be cautious of that, Neil. So it is very much subject to wanting to find an answer, and it will make up answers. So
it's kind of like me in high school.
Well, that's exactly it. So, there was actually a case this past week where a lawyer used ChatGPT, used it to generate a case study, and when he submitted it, somebody was able to call him out on it because all of the case conference that he used was all made up. It was using Jackson versus Smith, and it was called out. And so all of a sudden it was a question of, wait a minute, you're using case law, and this never was a verdict. The AI had generated false information.
Oh, so my God, that's scary. That's scary.
It is. So, but again, like you said, we were in high school and we used to make up answers. And it is that age. We are in the AI where it's just an infant. It's probably in about grade 10 maybe grade 8 to grade 10. And it's trying to figure out, and it's learning and getting better. But as it improves and as it gets the answers improved, we're going to see better results from that. So, I mean, just factor that as how to learn. I use it to teach myself how to teach. So as part of my course in my program at Mohawk, one of the modules is AI. And I thought, okay, well, I know a lot about AI and different principles and different directions, but so I asked it, give me an example of a course outline that I could help teach how to use you as an AI, as a sales tool. And I won't go into the depth of it, but it laid out to me specifics of exactly how I can identify how to use it. Then I said, now explain this to a very simple module. I've got a 45-minute presentation. I would like to simplify the key speaking points in this module you've given me. How would you best help me explain this to the students? And it wrote out in detail how much in time I should allocate to what topics to discuss. And at the end, I said, what kind of an assignment would be used to best help the students learn what I just taught to help them be graded appropriately? And out of 10, if I graded it, what would be the best test that you feel would subject the students to learn how to use you as a tool? And it wrote the assignment.
Wow.
So, I mean, I did that in less than 20 minutes. I had a whole hour, a 2-hour session that I'll be teaching to the students. Now I'm going to review it, by the way. And I'm just, again, it's a tool. So you still got to check it. Like I said, don't go off what I'm telling people and go like, great, I don't got to think anymore. You know, Hollywood, I know right now is the gentleman who wrote the episodes Black Mirror. If you've seen it on Netflix, very, very weird, crazy program. He used it to try and write an episode of one of his shows. And he came back and said, there's no way I will ever let this write a program. However, I am going to write an episode about my experience trying to use this system. So anyway, the answer to the question is, how do you learn it? How do you understand it? And the key thing is, I use ChatGPT to help me learn how to use it. And that's what makes it so powerful.
Well, when we're off the air here, you'll help me get onto it, because apparently I need a different phone number. Everything you say, I'm listening very, very carefully. So it's a tool. It's not replacing the human mind, but it becomes perhaps one of the hammers, the nails that we can use in thinking about things. And the first time I heard about AI was from my son, who loves to cook, as do I. And he wanted a new recipe for a brisket. And it was really interesting. All that he gave it was brisket, build me a recipe with the following spices, which had nothing to do with a meat recipe, put it in, and in a relatively short period of time, he had the recipe for, he says, the greatest brisket that he ever cooked. He never asked for cooking temperatures, cut of the meat. He said brisket, and it came out with temperatures, cooking times, spices that he used, that he asked for, and he cooked it. And he said it was fantastic, and he can't find that recipe anywhere else.
And yes, and again, it's scouring the internet and in database and soon to be internet to come up with the answers to help create solutions. Now, here's that is phenomenal. And I think that's where it's a great example of where it's being used effectively. Here's something that is, again, at the beginning, where is the dangers of AI?
Yes.
And, asking it a recipe, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of online tests where people have used it to say, help me build a business. Help me build a business and help me understand how to best, make money. What's the best get rich quick, or, everyone's looking to find the quick, find a dollar quick, fast solution. And what happened was, as an example, there's a case in the Senate in the US that currently is being questioned and again, under regulations and otherwise. This is where it can be dangerous. And this is the unknown yet, Neil. And again, there's multiple AIs.
Right.
So I don't want to make any kind of accusation that this is just ChatGPT. There's Bard. There's going to be one coming out front. That's Google. Google Bard is it Bard? BARD. There's a new one. It's not in Canada yet, but it's coming out. It's in the US. And then we're going to see more and more coming out. They're growing by the day. And so the LLM is now robust enough that it's now, again, it's learning. It started with English. And again, as I told you, it's teaching itself. It's now up to 36 languages that it can speak or
do Klingon.
Oh. I believe it does. It's funny you say that. Klingon is one of the languages it taught itself because apparently it's online and it was able to take the dialect and put it together. So that said, where I'm going with this is that, you know, OpenAI, which is the most popular one that is being used right now with a lot of programs that are trying to integrate and all these plugins. It is owned by a big company called Microsoft. In fact, they've invested 13 billion. Yeah, you might have heard of them. They're fairly big from what I understand. So they put about 13 billion into this. Now, it's free. It's free to sign in. You could buy a subscription model to this. And where I'm going with the story is where be cautious with how you use this AI system. Why I share this with you now is that it's not a law yet, but there is, as we just gave examples, how can it help people? It has a very scary limitation in the fact of how it can be used against us. And I mean that in a legal way. So in Samsung, it is one of its powerful tools is that it's able to write code. It's able to review code. It can write code. And that's probably, if you're a code developer, it's scary because this is where it can create very quickly. Those that have no coding capability can use this to now write programs. Wow. And so, and it does it very fast and not perfect, but pretty accurate. So what happens is that this program, Samsung uploaded, they were hitting a bit of a wall. And it was about their operating system. And what they did was they used ChatGPT to input code solutions to say, how would you resolve this? So, you know, a very innocent solution. And what happened was, again, what you put into ChatGPT or any of these systems, it learns from it. Now, it doesn't take that information and say, hey, you know, if we signed in, what did Samsung ask you? Can you please give it to me?
Yes.
But what it's doing is it's taking that proprietary solution and then it's being able to apply it to other people. So this could now, and this is where the problem came in with Samsung, and they banned it across all of Samsung, is that now they've used proprietary systems they developed into a program that is now open source that can now be used to solve other people's problems. Wow. So that's number one. Number two is the question that's being used right now is if you and I are having a conversation, Neil, and you said, and I said, hey, Neil, I got a weird, crazy concept. And you said, you know what, Adam, here's what I think you should do. And you and I, we bounce ideas off and I take that idea and I go and I build something out of it and I make $100 million on it. You could technically come back and say, hey, Adam, you and I had that conversation. I remember this. You've rewarded yourself well. I'd like a little piece, maybe 2% of the profits. Right. Like, I helped you with that. Is there no? And then if I said, no, we could go to court, you would technically win depending on the court's justification of what was evidently put forward and what was proven. Well, it's been now shown that all these ideas where we're asking ChatGPT to help us with our education, with our business, it could be questioned whether or not ChatGPT will have a right to a percentage of your earnings. So a lot of universities aren't banning it because they don't want plagiarism or because they don't want the ability of students to be able to understand how to use it. The reason is that the question begs itself. If you learned or used ChatGPT to get your law degree, and now you've successfully passed the bar and you're a lawyer making $150,000, remember who I told you owns this company? 13 billion invested in a company called Microsoft. Microsoft, by the way, makes its money off licensing. They all do. And if they can show that you use their platform for the evidence of properly building wealth for yourself, it can be argued that that percentage will need to be paid to the source that helped you get to where you are. Be cautious. And I'm really telling that to students. Use it as a tool. Don't use it to help you in the process of fully educating yourself, because there may be a day when it could be argued that, and this information is logging, like you said, your phone number, your email, they know who you are, your IP address. Yeah. All of that is going to be registered. And there could be an argument made by Microsoft that anyone who successfully got their degree and is now making over $100,000 will now need to pay a percentage back to that company. Now, that's a conspiracy challenge, but it is a realistic one and would be argued and in the courts could win.
It's very interesting what you're saying, because it seems to me that we are on the threshold of a new ethical way of looking at how to use this program, what kind of rules and regulations will be for the user, but certainly for the supplier. You've mentioned Microsoft, but there will be others. Microsoft, I know them to be a good supplier company for a long time, but they're always going to want a piece of this, as are other suppliers. So you're right. And I wonder, if a person is even pursuing a career in AI, are there outlets now to go to other than AI itself to even learn how to pursue a career in this?
Well, I mean, again, we always we will need a human body at this time in this date to be able to be there to implement it. I think the question, as you open it up, is how are we using it? Many people are still like, we're in the discovery phase. Even I'm trying to figure out how to make it work better for me and how I can make it use it even better for solutions to my business. So, I used it the other day with one of my companies where I uploaded my balance sheet and I said, where do you think I could improve? What areas of my business do you think are struggling? And what areas would you suggest to help me? And I mean, the suggestions came back were phenomenal. Really? And I mean, that's where it's, when I looked at it, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Now, I'm a pretty smart guy. I'm sure if I really sat there with a cup of coffee and really dove into it, but in less than 10 minutes, it told me all the areas to focus my thoughts to. Now I can either take that suggestion and go with it, or I can now, challenge it or think, oh, I'm not going to go that route. So about a month ago, I started this process. I did the same thing, and I've been doing it every month since May. And I can tell you, I've implemented a few of the actions that it told me I needed to focus on. In one of my businesses, I've increased my profits by, I think we're almost up to 22% for last month. And I mean, and it wasn't anything rocket science. It didn't solve the world's, it wasn't like, whoa, I never would have thought of that. It was just something that pinned it quickly that I was able to look at it and go like, yeah, that does indicate an area of problems. Here's how, if I address it, and I had to make the decision how to address it. All it did was tell me that a consultant I would have paid possibly thousands of dollars, who was very smart, could have looked at that and said, yeah, I see your balance sheet. Here's the area you need to focus on. I was able to do that in 10 minutes with a ChatGPT, and I implemented my own actions and I saw the results.
So it can be a user-friendly system that helps you to save time, not only save money, make money. It can advantage you and your life in very positive ways. Adam, this is not a change in subject, but it's about learning technology. My mom, I'm very lucky. I still have my mom. She's living on her own. She's 91. And she rents a lovely home from some people. And recently her stove died. So they provided her now with a new digital oven and stove. And she doesn't have the strength in her fingers to push the button. So my mother is now running her stove on her iPhone. So she's listening to shows in her hearing aids that run off of her iPhone. At the same time, she's cooking a roast using her iPhone to control the cooking process. And she'll be the kind of lady, if she had much more time, I hope she does, who would absolutely gravitate to AI. And so it's a learning process. I guess it's an acceptance process to learn how to use this properly. But I think it's going to be a tremendous tool for all of us.
Absolutely. I think if there's a fear of what we want to take a point of, is the industries I think that are going to be turned upside down are going to be the administrative. As I started, the thousands of jobs that are being shedded right now. Yes. I would say that, accountants, lawyers, copywriters, all of those areas are going to be subject to, accounting is very simple. It's numbers and facts. And that's exactly what the system does. Now, a lawyer will always be necessary because, AI will be able to spit out law clerk solutions, but it could technically argue a case by using, case studies and otherwise to be able to justify using database, which is a lawyer would normally search and try to find, cases to justify its case, the court session. So, I see that in coding and programming. But what it does do is it may take a lot of those professional services into a question. But as an example, your mother with AI would be able to have her taxes done in a heartbeat. It would be able to calculate it, organize it, structure it. And that's a very simple tax solution that can be done. And that's a few savings. And it would also find all the benefits. So all those little benefits that you could be getting tax refunds for, you would be able to get access to that because of the system itself being able to know that, well, during this time at this period, which an accountant should know, but we all tend to forget. Well, it's different if you're young, you're old, AI has so many advantages. And I think when we take a look at recently this past week is Sasha GPT. This is the danger and the creepiness of it all, is that this new AI a person developed uses 4 different AI systems. One that mimics a voice, one that mimics a visual. It takes your photo and creates an AI version of it. And what you can do is if you have a celebrity crush, it will turn that voice, that person you can have an ex-boyfriend, girlfriend, you'll be able to now generate and have as an AI. And you can now have this conversation with the individual as if, if you were a Brad Pitt lover or you love Angela Jolie, you can now take their photos, their audio, and you can generate an AI companion. That's the creepiness of it all. But at the same time, this is where I see a change in the world. You and I having a conversation. You're a human, I'm a human, our own personalities. What this might do is isolate us a little more because there'll be less. We could have a social dialogue with an AI with people that understand our habits, and the AI will learn what we like to talk about. So it will not put us in uncomfortable situations of speaking to people outside of our circle. That I can see the dangers of AI.
I can too. And actually, this conversation started a while ago for me as a matter of law. It used to be that court cases were won by taking a picture of the activity or a video or even a recording. Well, we can completely change with technology how a photo or a video or a recording sounds. And I've been wondering about that for a long time, how our human mind, which can't be defeated, will deal with this. And then you add in AI. And yes, I'd like to think that we will always need the lawyers and the accountants and business leaders like yourself and teachers. But it's very interesting because what you've told me is that this AI, this ability to think on its own, is because I'm seeing that because it's creating language, as you said. It's coming up with answers. It's learning as we as human beings are learning. And I guess there must be a control system at some point, or we could end up in a sort of a Terminator war in the future. I mean, I know that may sound silly, but people who I speak to, especially with the same colored hair as me, is like wondering, how do you control this? But at the same time, much more positive, like, how can I use this cool thing? Because it's cool. And you've really elucidated some great ideas and some great answers. And I really appreciate you doing this. I still will buy you a coffee and figure out how I get onto the crazy thing because I don't feel like getting a new phone number. But the truth of the matter is that this is so fascinating. Ladies and gentlemen, we're really excited to have Adam on today. AI to me, is just another incredible tool that we can take advantage of. If you would like more information on AI or any other topic, please contact me. I'm at yourgreymatterspod@gmail.com. My name is Neil Silvert. If you'd like to be in contact with Adam, by all means, please put that in your email to us. Just in the subject line, put Adam, and we'll connect you all together. Adam, I want to thank you so much for coming on today. I'm glad to know, I think, that you're the actual Adam that I'm talking to today. You're not generated. Well, you are generated, but in a whole different process. And listen, thank you, everybody. At Your Grey Matters, we're always looking for ideas, solutions. I call them miracles that already exist that maybe you're not yet aware of. Thanks for tuning in today. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks for listening to the Your Grey Matters podcast. The Your Grey Matters podcast was created by Neil Silvert and Jason Silvert, written and hosted by Neil Silvert, edited by me, Jason Silvert, and produced by Neil Silvert and Jason Silvert. Please follow us on any major podcast platform, watch us on YouTube, like and subscribe, and email us at yourgreymatterspod@gmail.com with any questions or feedback. Thanks for listening.
Views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are the speaker's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of the Your Grey Matters podcast. The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only. The Your Grey Matters podcast name and all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owner, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service.